What is your favorite Jesus story? This summer, 18 different people will take 10 minutes each to share their favorite Jesus story. We find Jesus meeting unexpected people in unexpected places, teaching, healing, and telling stories. So this summer, we will explore everything from seeing is believing to it's okay to be last to my passion for the passion. Our challenge to each other is to read the Gospels this summer and discover for yourself what is your favorite Jesus story.
Good morning. It was April 14th, 2012. It was a Wednesday, and it was my oldest daughter, Nicole's 10th birthday. It was probably a little past 7 in the morning, and it was a school day for the girls and a work day for me and Em. We all wished Nicole a happy birthday that morning with the intent of having the family birthday party in the evening. It was still a regular day, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that needed to be done before we headed out for our days. There was quick breakfasts to be eaten, lunches to get ready, clothes to be picked out, backpacks to be filled up, the usual hectic, chaotic, busy mornings. As we're going through our morning routine, the phone rings. My wife, Emily, looks at the phone number and says it's my parents calling. My first reaction was, not now. We're busy. It's probably my mom calling to wish Nicole a happy birthday. We do not have time for this. Call or come over for cake later in the evening, but not now. I picked up the phone, and I was right. It was my mom calling, but she wasn't calling to wish Nicole a happy birthday. She called to let me know my dad had a heart attack, and I was to rush over as quickly as I could. She was panicking. My parents live about 10 minutes away, so I jumped into the car and rushed over. When I got there, the paramedics were already there, working on my dad in the bedroom. I tried to console my mom and give the paramedics some space. So I took my mom aside and into the kitchen, and the two of us prayed together. We both prayed in faith that my dad should be healed. The ambulance arrived, and my dad was rushed to the hospital. Me and my mom both hoped my dad would be okay. My name is Jurgen Friesen, and I lead a small group in middle school, and I'm also on the tech team. In Matthew 8, 5-13, and in Luke 7, 1-9, there's a story about Jesus performing a divine healing to a Roman centurion servant. But what I consider a more significant part of the story is not the healing of the servant, but what I consider the great faith the Roman centurion had. So in Matthew 8, 5-13, the faith of the centurion. When Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home, paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, shall I come heal him? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go, let it be done just as you believed it would. And his servant was healed at that moment. For me, the most revealing and telling part of this story is the short interaction that the centurion has between himself and Jesus. So just in quickly rereading in Matthew 8, when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, shall I come and heal him? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. At this moment in the story, I try to put myself in the centurion's shoes and his head during this conversation. And what would I do under those circumstances? Let's say I'm the Roman centurion and my wife Emily was paralyzed at home, suffering. I would assume we've already went to see a whole bunch of doctors and specialists. They have examined Emily and they tell me, sorry, unfortunately nothing can be done for her. But I hear a story about this man traveling through Manitoba and the surrounding areas, a guy that performs miracles. And many people are saying he's a good and wise man who has the ability to heal people. Some say he's the Son of God. And he's coming to Winnipeg. I've heard of this man called Jesus and what he's preaching and speaking. I like what he says and his teachings. I actually believe most of what he says, even though I was not brought up in his religious faith and have actually never met him in person. I ask myself, maybe he can heal Emily. My thinking might be, what harm could it do to ask him? Maybe it will work, and maybe it won't. It's worth a shot. What's the risk? Who knows? Maybe he knows something about medical practices and medicine that the other doctors missed or don't know. So I get lucky. I meet this man called Jesus in person, and I tell him about Emily, and I ask for help. And he responds, shall I come heal her? My response would be, yes, please come to our house and try to heal Emily, which I would think would be a normal person's response. I don't know how you do your healing, but please examine her, pray over her, lay your healing hands on her, heal her with your spiritual practices. Do whatever you have to do to heal her. To be honest, I would also be quite content if you heal her using normal medical procedures. I don't care. See if there's something the other doctors missed. Give her some medicine that maybe only you have. But yes, please come look at her and see if anything can be done to cure her. But for myself in saying this, I would still have that level of doubt in the back of my mind that this might or might not work, but it's worth a chance. But what I find interesting is that wasn't the Roman centurion's response at all when Jesus asked him the question, shall I come heal him? His response is basically no. No, meaning you don't have to come to my house and prove yourself. I know who you are, believe absolutely in what you say and can do, and I know how things work. In Luke 8, verse 9, the centurion says, for I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. And I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. The centurion already made the intuitive connection that because Jesus was truly the Son of God, he had supernatural authority. So therefore, his authority transcends the physical and natural world. Therefore, Jesus, you only have to say the word, and my servant will be healed. When I said yes before, my response was based on my limited faith and understanding of who Jesus is and what he can and cannot do. My faith requires some kind of a proof and assurance. I need Jesus to actually come and physically see Emily, and I actually need to see the miracle. My faith would always have a degree of skepticism that he could do this, heal Emily. My faith says what you say in theory sounds good, but does it really work in real life? My faith relies on what my physical senses show and tell me. To me, when the Roman centurion says back to Jesus, just say the word and the servant will be healed, this was a testament or testimony to what I consider his great faith, faith on a different level. When the Roman centurion met Jesus and asked him to heal his servant, and Jesus responded, shall I come heal him? That was all the Roman centurion had to hear. His faith wasn't based on anything else, a sign for Jesus to perform, the actual healing of the servant itself. It was based totally on Jesus' response and the centurion having faith in who Jesus was and what he could do. There wasn't a grain of doubt in the centurion's mind who Jesus was and what he could do. He wasn't hoping that when he went back to his servant, he would be healed. He knew instinctively it would be done and his servant would be healed. I think this is why Jesus referred to the Roman centurion as having great faith. Again, like I said, faith on a different level. In both stories, in Matthew and in Luke, it's quite apparent that the Roman centurion was already a believer. In both Matthew and Luke, when the centurion meets Jesus, he addresses him as Lord. To me, he must have known about God and the Jewish teachings and their faith, a faith he probably adopted as his own. He probably learned this through the Jewish local inhabitants living in Capernaum, and somehow he put the evidence together and accepted it and became a believer. I also find it amazing that the Roman centurion put his faith in Jesus because, I assume that when he met Jesus, this was probably the first time he ever met him in person. I also think that's why Jesus was amazed and impressed with the Roman centurion and says to him in Matthew 8, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. The Roman centurion wasn't a Jewish person who grew up with the teachings and understanding of the Jewish faith, religion, and culture. He wasn't a Pharisee, a rabbi, or a Jewish scholar who knew the biblical teachings inside and out. He was a Gentile who probably had his own belief systems growing up, but somehow put the pieces together and realized that Jesus was truly the Son of God. When Jesus heard the Roman centurion say, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed, I think Jesus thought, this guy really gets it. The Roman centurion who probably had no prior knowledge of the power of Jesus, knew that he could put his faith in Jesus and his servant would be healed. That's the kind of faith I would like to have. Faith that fully trusts who Jesus is no matter the circumstances. A faith that continues to grow and has a deeper understanding of who Jesus is and what he can do. A faith that is not stifled by fear, but amplified by boldness. A faith that doesn't focus on the material world, but focuses on the spiritual world. A faith that doesn't base its decisions on what is possible for me to do, but a faith that focuses on what God can do. My faith grew because of what happened to my dad. The presence of God was so evident during that time. My dad is still alive and doing well, praise the Lord. It was a miracle, but that's a whole other amazing story. When my dad was laying in the hospital the first few days after the heart attack, and we didn't know how things would turn out, there were a lot of people praying for him. Family, friends, members of many different churches. Who knows? Maybe there was a Roman centurion among them.